Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 3rd, 2016 meeting of the Rotterdam Town Board. We have a special meeting this evening. I'm going to have to call the roll. Ms. Marco is away. Mr. Christou?
Present.
Mr. Lormar?
Present.
Mrs. Miller-Herrera?
Present.
Mr. Bolano?
Here.
Myself, Mr. Thomasone, I'm present, so we've got 5 present. We have a quorum. And if you would all please stand. And Mr. Marcinkowski, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I do not have anything this evening under supervisor's report. So we have a public hearing this evening. I'm going to read the public hearing 1. Forgive me. I have to move my paper out because the eyes aren't what they used to be. So public hearing.
Want me to hold it for you?
Public hearing 1, to amend the code of the Town of Rotterdam, Chapter 244, Solid Waste, Garbage, Recycling, Brush, Grass, and Leaves, Sections G and H, to reduce the fee from $50 to $40 for the year 2016, to reduce the fee from $40 to $25 for the year 2017, and to reduce the fee from $25 to $0 for the year 2018. Repeal Section G of this chapter entitled Fees for Collection of Materials, effective January 1, 2018, and procedures to decline service. So anyone who would like to be heard on a public hearing this evening? Mr. Bachelor.
I'm Eric Batcher, 3013 Wilson Street. Back up here again, just to speak one more time here. I think you've all made your decisions that, you know, this fee will gradually be reduced over the next couple of years. Mr. Supervisor, eliminating the $50 brush fee without affecting our tax cap or star rebate is one of the accomplishments expected under your watch. That being said, what, or do you know the amount that needs to be collected so that our tax cap and star rebate isn't affected?
The amount that needs to be collected so our star rebates are not affected.
Right,
It
because
is, well, it's kind of a, how should I say, it's kind of a difficult question to answer. What I mean by that is this, is that the town collects numerous fees. So whether we're talking about the brush fee or fees for building and zoning, that money that's collected goes into the, you know, into the funds to pay for whatever expenses it is that we have. So in other words, if we were to eliminate that amount completely out of the budget this year, it's, you know, $350 is what we have budgeted in the line item, but we collect approximately $400,000, and the reason for that is because every year there's a mismatch in what it is that we're collecting, and the reason for that is very simply this: is that when residents don't send back the notice that says I don't want to pay the brush fee, you know, because they didn't get it notarized or they happen to be on vacation, whatever the case may be, that amount is then put into their January tax bill, so then that's collected in the following year. So that's why there's really a mismatch. But let's say, for the sake of argument, it's $350,000. So we have to find that money in the budget, make those necessary cuts. The other part of it is this, is that without the brush fee for this year's budget, you know, because I just got my check in the mail today. I don't know how many of you received your check today, or maybe last week, or whenever they sent them out. I don't really know. But, and so for the, you know, few $100s I received, I paid the $50 last year. So I get it. As a resident, I'm paying $50 or paid $50 to get a check back because we didn't exceed the tax cap. The issue, though, for the future becomes, we don't know necessarily what the tax cap will be because the state comptroller's office, am I correct on that, sets the, my mind is wandering a little bit, so I apologize. So it sets the rate. So it could be 1.5%, it could be 0.5%. So that's why frankly, we're looking to reduce it in this way so that we don't affect our residents getting back their check. You know, making one big decision based on, because, you know, some people believe it's, and I don't want to use the words politically expedient, but that it's expedient, let me just say it that way, that it's expedient to do so. So we want to take the rational, and in my view, responsible approach. And this year, we will find ways to, you know, save some money here or there. We'll find ways to start negotiating the budget earlier. You know, sometime over the summer, we'll meet together, whether it's here publicly or if I'm meeting with one council member at a time, and start looking through those areas where they have some, you know, some suggestions that that they can make, that we can reduce our dependency in different areas. We'll do that. So, you know, having said that, it's very difficult for me to just say, if we just eliminate X, Y, Z, it's done, because now I have increasing healthcare costs, right? Everyone feels that pinch. We don't really know. We know that the gas prices are low today. They could be higher next year. Unfortunately for us, while we have a lot of knowns in our budget, we know what things cost us and what things will cost us next year because we have contractual obligations with our unions, et cetera, or I should say, you know, with our employees, and our obligations to the town for the services that we want to provide and that the town's people and the businesses expect us to provide. So it's a much more difficult decision than just saying, let's just get rid of this right now and somehow we're going to figure it out, because there's just too many unknowns for me. And I've been here, you know, before in this position where I've tried to work with board members to get costs reduced, and frankly, and if you go back in the, you know, prior meetings from the mid-2000s, you can find this in late 2000s, is that the supervisor has to put together as the budget officer, has to put together the budget. We file a preliminary budget. That preliminary budget may or may not have a quote-unquote tax increase in it. We'll try to stay, you know, within the tax cap, whatever we're assigned. But really, you know, there's 4 other people on the board with me. So it's not just the supervisor's job to come up with those suggestions, it's everybody. And I think that everyone here genuinely, and regardless of, you know, how we feel about different issues, I think we genuinely all agree that we have to find ways to keep our taxes in line in the town. We have to find ways to grow the town. And as you can see, we're all in agreement, for example, for Hamburg Street, for the sewer line. We're all in agreement that we need to do more with our water infrastructure. We're all in agreement that we'd like to see, you know, more and greater things happen for, you know, whether we're talking about the highway department, police department, whatever the case may be. We have equipment that needs to be replaced. We have vehicles that need to be replaced. And I'm giving you a long story short. No, not really. Long story long. Is that last week I went through 3 of the, you know, town buildings. We have several, but, you know, I include the three largest ones besides the highway department, which is the senior center, town hall, and the police department. And there are thousands of dollars worth of work that have to be done to just our buildings. Now, we can again, this is not a finger pointing game. There are things that have been overlooked, or for whatever reason just avoided or band-aided. I'm not that guy. I'm going to make sure that I work with the board members here. I'm going to show them what I think needs to be done. I'm going to ask them to help me find money in the budget to pay for the things that need to be done. And that's where I think we'll start to find some ways where we can, you know, coalesce some agreement here to find ways to ensure that as the fee goes to 0 in 2018, that we do not exceed the tax cap.
So what you're saying is the estimate that you're figuring as far as the amount of money collected on this brush fee, your estimate is $350,000?
That's what's in the budget. I mean,
So that's
a fact.
your estimated
Yes.
intake with the fee?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is that estimate based on actual data of the money collected from voluntary bill or fee payment prior to the due date?
Yes, the 350, yes. But we do, like I said, we do take in, I believe it's, I don't have the paperwork here in front of me, I apologize, believe it or not, it's in my car. But the budget, the actual expenditures and revenues for, that's just a subsidiary ledger that I have, that's not gonna have the revenue side of it. I mean, I was just thinking that. So it's 400,000. So yeah, we do collect more than what we have budgeted, because of, again, that mismatch from year one, really, of carrying it forward into January.
Okay. So, as far as the opt-out procedure goes, this amendment of repealing some opt-out, now, what is the detail about that? Is it just pushing the date out?
No.
Or you don't have to opt out and you're only opted in if you pay the bill?
No. The current process is that if you want to opt out of the brush fee, you have to have your signature notarized. And our changes, we're saying you don't need to have your signature notarized. You get the letter at home, you sign, I'm opting out, you throw it back in the mail, it gets here, it's signified that you're opting out, period. You don't need to have it notarized. Permanently, thank you. Which means that, and the word forevermore is in there, which just very simply is you opt out once, that's it. We're not gonna mail you again next year and say, hey, do you wanna opt back in? And no, I don't wanna opt back in. Well, you have to sign again. No, that's it. Now, you have an opt-in form. So let's say that you opt out in 2016, and you decide next year that you wanna opt back in. You can opt back in with an opt-in form, sign it, send it in, and you'll be charged $25 next year, or pay the fee, you know. So come down here and pay the fee. And then 2018, no more mailings, no, you know, it'll be done.
So this whole brush fee collection started when it was stated that the budget for this pickup was completely blown. And I believe that was one of the reasons why they wanted to collect this brush fee, is because they went significantly over what they budgeted for the brush collection, or for the brush cost in the budget. And I can see, it's obvious there's a lot of things that can be looked at in this brush collection process. I mean, the pickup schedule, that's never been, ever, you know, there's never been a pickup schedule. So, I mean, sometimes the bags will sit on the curb for 2 days. Maybe they get picked up the day you put them out there. But there's many times when they're there for a week. And how much time and gas and man hours are wasted driving that big dump truck or garbage truck around the town of Rotterdam, aimlessly looking for bags. Yeah.
So your point is that
I thought
That-
they were.
there should be a notification of
There should be
a schedule, knowing that your
Yeah.
neighborhood's done on Wednesday,
Yeah.
his neighborhood's done on Thursday.
County waste, you know,
They have-
accurate, you know, all of that. I mean,
The highway superintendent's not here, and I want to answer this, I need to answer this from my past experience and not current experience. The only way I can answer this question, honestly, is that we had a schedule pickup that we would go around town. And obviously, what you run into from time to time is weather. The weather may not cooperate one day, so now you're behind a day or 2 days or 3 days and going to that specific neighborhood to pick up bags and brush. The highway superintendent's role is to manage that process. So, you know, having said that, I don't know that they haven't followed a schedule, but it would be more advisable if we could do that. I think that the problem that we would have, though, again, just has to do with weather. That, you know, regardless of what your best intentions are, if we get storms, you know, so I know you understand what I'm saying. And so, but I don't disagree with you that it would be great if there was a way to publish that. I'll speak with Highway Superintendent Lamora and see what he can, you know, what he can come up with. Frankly, I think it'll be a lot easier for him and the highway department once this fee is completely eliminated. It will be a lot easier for them to manage this. Right now, what they do is, once the opt-outs happen, they have a list of the opt-outs. So that's how they're doing it now. I mean, they'll go down the street, so they know, because half the time, the squares might be covered, somebody might be parked in front of it, right, it might be bags on it, who knows? So they do have a list. So it's not, they're not just going down the street without knowing who should or should not be picked up.
So they're reading this off
They're going, yeah,
paper?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Mr. Batcher, if I could also interject, you know, we also have acknowledged that perhaps the highway department needs some more administrative help, and we've already started dedicating some resources in order to give the highway superintendent, you know, some administrative help to take care of these, and maybe just fine tune them and stick closer to them. So your point has been actually already recognized, and we've already made some initial steps to improve that communication and that scheduling process on behalf of the highway superintendent.
Okay, thanks. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, thanks for your comments, thanks for taking the time. Okay, anyone else on the public hearing?
My name is Ron Batcher. I live at 2708 Granville Avenue, Schenectady, Rotterdam. First of all, I want you to know that I opted out from the collection from early on. I never thought it was what we should be doing, but I wasn't sitting up there knowing all the finances and what drove it. And if it was the collection of the disposal fees that kept our tax cap down to where we got these rebate checks, I would like to thank all those who pay their bills so that I could get a check. But on the other hand, I feel kind of guilty because now you have the people who opted in are somewhat feeling responsible, you know, to keep under that tax cap. Now, I'm not sure if they really do, but when you hear all these different things, that's the way I see it, you know, because a lot of people who did not pay those fees and were able to get those checks. So I was hoping there was more people here that opted in so I could thank more people, but they're not here. And unfortunately, that just seems to be the sign of the times. Now, in 2018, I'm assuming that this brush collection will carry on like it used to.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that's good.
absolutely. It was always part of the highway tax, and that's where it should be.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you,
Thanks.
thanks for your comments. Okay, anyone else for public hearing one?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, I'll take this opportunity to speak to. I was half expecting when I showed up here today to be greeted with balloons, cake, and candles for this glorious reduction. But I remembered this is not a celebration tonight. Rather, it's the fulfillment of an incomplete promise, an incomplete performance that was promised during the campaign season. Never did the town residents hear of a phase out during the campaign. If we had some control over our spending, including the spending that took place on January 13th, we wouldn't have this problem now. There are tons of places to find $360,000 in Bafardi's outgoing administration budget. The thing is, we could have had our cake and eaten it too. Rather, we've made inappropriate choices. We've decided to take on cost in this town without knowing what those costs are, by hiring and promoting several individuals without having a contract in place, even knowing what those individuals will cost, is fiscally irresponsible. This is not a fee that we're discussing tonight. It's a tax, because not all of the money goes to that. It's been quoted several times by the supervisor that other needs are pressing and that the money is making it available to fulfill those needs. The cost of government spending put on the taxpayers is a tax. Taxes are rightfully exempted for veterans and others. Fees are not. Taxes allow you to get reductions on your income tax as well when you pay them to a municipality. Fees you do not. I love getting back my own money from the state of New York as part of the tax-free check system. However, the thing is, really, How much money did I get back? Well, in 2014, two fees were put into place. A $50 water fee and a $50 brush hike tax. And those two taxes combined resulted in a 16.5% tax increase for the residents of the town of Rotterdam. Followed by subsequent years, including last year, where, based on my own tax bills that I passed out a few meetings ago, along with the math to back it up, we got whacked for another 8.5% tax increase. So, your taxes have gone up approximately 25% in the 2 years that I've sat here. However, the thing is, let's just talk about fees. In the increased fees alone, without taking into account tax, since I've been sitting up here, by the end of next year, when supposedly this fee will resolve, I would have paid $365 in additional fees. Coincidentally, that's similar-ish to the amount of money that you are going to be getting. So at the end of the day, this saves you no money. Like everything else, it's a political ploy. Tonight, like it seems like often in my last 2 years here, we the residents are being served lukewarm pizza. We were promised surf and turf during the campaign season. As a fiscally conservative individual, I'm hungry for any meal at this point. But I cannot say that I am not largely dissatisfied with the direction that this administration has taken. But to say that you are saving any of your money whatsoever when my fees are going to end up equaling the check that I receive is simply a fallacy to make this tax on you, ladies and gentlemen, a little more palatable.
Is it? Okay.
All set.
Amen.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. Excuse me. The problem I have is not necessarily, to me, the fact that it's going in the right direction, I like that. As far as the fact that it didn't happen all at once, that wouldn't even have been such a terrible, terrible thing if it wasn't for the fact that not only do we still have that fee, but we had an 8.5% tax hike. If we didn't have an 8.5% tax hike, we wouldn't have needed that fee. You can't kill off the townspeople tax-wise on two ends. You got to give them some relief somewhere. And so to constantly be doing that, and then we go out and we spend money. All we need to do to get this town right has to do with revenue. Even though we lost a lot of revenue, it doesn't have to do with getting a lot more revenue. It has to do with a lot less spending, wasteful spending, and we do that on a constant basis. It doesn't matter who's doing, what group of people are doing it, it's happening. And that's got to stop, because if that continues to go in a direction, it's been going for years now, the town will not make it through. So that's really all I have to say.
Mr. Supervisor, if I may. Okay, I've listened now for 2 weeks on how the glass is half empty. We've come into a new administration. Unfortunately, there is no rewind button. Unfortunately, the last budget that was put forth was not acceptable to many people, but it is the budget that this administration has inherited. Having said that, again, I'm trying to ask myself, what is the human value of immediately condemning our newly elected supervisor and its new board members because, and create an accusation of an unfulfilled promise? No one ever said we vow to eliminate the brush fee irresponsibly. The brush fee is going away. We all agree on that. Why create an enemy, okay?
the water fee, $50 water fee, if I'm not mistaken, a $75 water fee, if I'm not mistaken, municipalities that have residents on water meters pay significantly more for water, okay? We must cut spending. You're absolutely right, Mr. Lamore. But do not think for one moment that with just the increase of cost of living and the increase in actual operating costs, that you do not have to increase revenue. You have to have grapes to make wine. And we need to increase revenue. As far as the hiring of the public safety officers, our crime rate is higher than Scotia, Glenville, and Niskayuna combined. So public safety, we must be prudent, but not at the safety and well-being of our residents. I believe that this is, again, as I said last week, this is the worst possible scenario. This keeps our feet to the fire. This assures us that we eliminate the brush fee in a prudent and responsible way. If through collaboration, we put our heads together and we find some of these monies that we are talking about prudently and effectively without gutting departments and without paralyzing some departments which are already shorthanded, then we can always amend this and eliminate the brush fee sooner. This is the worst possible scenario. But we are all in agreement the brush fee must go away. I agree with Mr. Villano, it is just another form of a tax, okay? And it's gotta go away. It shouldn't have been there in the first place, but it is. And I want everybody to get that check back, because as much as you're analyzing it at a zero out, it's a negative if you don't get that check back. And nobody wants to put more money out of their pockets. So I would implore you all to, again, stay on this collaborative mentality, not create enemies and accuse and pass out flyers of campaign notices, and let's continue to work together to do a better job for the following year, for the rest of this year and for the following year. But this, I think, is the step in the right direction. It makes us all accountable. We have to eliminate the brush fee. Would we all like to eliminate it sooner? Sure. If there's a windfall, perhaps. But you know, this is the path the right direction. This shows the public that we hear you. We don't want the brush fee to exist. We just want to eliminate it in a prudent and responsible way. Thank you.
Mr. Supervisor, could I say one more thing, please?
Sure, go ahead.
I believe Mr. Christo is right that we are going in the right direction. However, I would like to give us another thought to put us even in a better direction. The fact that the reason this all started was because they said that it cost, not these gentlemen here or anyone else here, but they said we were told the reason for the brush fee was because the cost to run that program, we didn't have the money for it, and it was costing more. And that is the highway department. So I propose that while we still have this brush fee, we take that money, instead of putting it in a fund where everybody can grab their piece of the pie of that, we put it in a fund that it can only be used for the highway department. Like say paving, you know, places of that where we really need the money. And instead of having everybody grab their piece of that when it's really supposed to be for the highway department. That's what I say we should do. We should put it in a fund that only the highway department can use.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else? No? Okay. Anyone else for public hearing one? No. Okay. I'll declare public hearing one closed. A little cushion under there. Okay, now we have public comment, privilege of the floor. Anyone, I know that you both signed for, do you have something else that you wanted to come up this evening for public comment, privilege of the floor?
I can just put, is the town dump still gonna be free?
The brush dump?
The brush dump, yes.
There's a permit.
There's a permit system.
Which is
You go to
free.
Go to the town clerk's office, get the permit system.
Depends on the
Because
There's a
size.
cost.
Depends on
Right,
the
for a
size.
residence and you got a car,
There's a cost to
or
it
a
though.
sedan.
Yeah, the cost for the permit.
It's
But last
been
year
free
it
in the
was,
past.
No, free.
bef-
Right, for town residents.
Supervisor Bafardi,
But not for,
That's
not for
not
commercial.
changing.
Right, no, that's not
Nothing
changing.
related to that is
No.
changing.
No,
No.
larger vehicles,
Commercial.
there's a cost to
For
it.
commercial.
But for a car, and then like, say if you have a car and then you have a trailer on the back, there's different graded amounts that you're gonna have to pay according to the size of the vehicle you have. For cars alone, it's free.
I think that's also true with like light pickup trucks and trailers.
Right.
It's only when you get into the larger.
Right, the real commercial.
When I went to get a permit for a small pickup truck, they wanted to charge me last year.
Did they charge you?
I wouldn't pay for it,
Okay. How
Is
big
that-
is your, how big is your truck?
just a quarter ton.
Quarter ton?
Yeah.
Well, you know, after the meeting, if you don't mind coming up, give me your name and phone number, and let me look into that for you, okay? Because I'm not sure, you know, how they, because it's not, my office doesn't issue the permit, so. Anyone else this evening?
Was this here just for the brush fee?
Yeah, that's it, but, yeah, if you have something else you want to talk about afterwards, I'm not leaving right away, so.
Okay.
No one else? Okay. Anyone have anything under committee reports or miscellaneous?
Is there a reason why we can't vote on this tonight? The public hearing is closed. If we're gonna do this, let's just get it over with.
Well, we already have it scheduled for the 10th for the agenda. It's already on the agenda, Mr.
Okay.
Bono, so. So I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Oh, actually, while we're still on miscellaneous, the ethics board appointments, it's my understanding that each party was going to select one individual. There's a vacancy for somebody terming out. There's a number of terms that they can serve. There's also an individual who is a non-resident of the state that's still on the ethics board. That creates 2 open slots. When will we be addressing those appointments, Mr. Supervisor?
We'll be addressing those over the next couple of meetings,
Okay.
because we also, I forget if it was on Friday or Monday, Mr. Bono, I honestly don't recall. However, we received another resignation from the ethics board.
Okay.
Okay, so we will be discussing that. The 5 of us will be discussing appointments for that board.
Okay, all right. Will we be receiving copies of the resignation letter?
I'll make sure that everybody gets copies of the resignation letters,
Very good.
yes. Yes.
I move to adjourn.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Christou, is there a second, please?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilmember Larmore. Anyone on the question? All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion is passed. The meeting is closed. Thank you very much.